Let's talk about the time frame. What is the precise time frame within the product life cycle when you make crucial software and technology decisions?
Well, I think it's a continuous progress decision point these days, simply because we are working in an agile way with a backlog model. And part of the reason why we're doing this is because the external environment always changes. So for me, at the beginning of the project, but this is a throughout the project concept where you have to stick to something in order to ship, but you also have to be agile enough to react to changes that the market is kind of asking of you.
So it sounds like there is no real starting point. It's an ongoing project that has no end to it. Is that accurate?
Well, again, in the software world, that is certainly true. But in the automotive world, we are dealing with obviously a combination of hardware and software, meaning the car is a thing that's on the road. And part of the charm of the software-defined vehicle world is that you're starting to say, hey, the software is malleable, which means I can change faster to meet changing market demands. So now I have to have a hardware strategy that provides the platform for that software to land.
What excites you the most about working on software-defined vehicle platforms?
I'm always considering myself an agent of change. And the world of automotive is something that I'm passionate about. I'm a very passionate driver. I have very interesting cars that I play with and drive. And so it has always been a part of my world. I'm also German, which means automotive is in my blood. But the software-defined vehicle world, I think, is opening up opportunities for us to really think about how do we go and change how software is built or how solutions are built for the car. I think that's the better way of thinking about it. And with the combination of a hardware platform that's stable and provides capabilities that we can build on, and the notion that we can use software to provide capabilities that are meeting demands that are changing. And then if you think about it from a OEM perspective or the manufacturers of cars, they need to also think about how do I drive continuous optimization? How do I run cheaper? How do I run faster? Maybe the energy, if it's an EV, you want to drive the range up and stuff like that. And ultimately, this happens through a combination of data collection, analysis, and then updated software. When you start to get into that virtuous cycle, then you can really drive change. And that ultimately is what you're looking for, either because of consumer demand or optimization demand.
What are some of the bigger challenges that your organization faces when it comes to software-defined vehicles?
Well, from Microsoft's point of view, we are not an automotive company. And so we cannot really build in-car software. We have tried it a couple of times. It doesn't fit our business model because we are a scalable company. That means we ship a piece of software and it goes into millions of devices or to millions of consumers or billions of consumers. But we don't really adapt it. And so part of what we have decided to do is what can we as a company really do and provide that. And that's one of the reasons why working with the Eclipse Foundation to really provide capabilities that eventually can be put into a car by a partner like Bosch or ETAS or Harman or other folks that are in this business, Continental, et cetera, ZF, that are automotive companies, and they do know how to work with the automotive ecosystem. So Microsoft is very good at providing capabilities that scale. And then we are working with partners to adapt it to the specific needs of the OEM in question.
What are your feelings on open source software?
Microsoft is an open source software. Very simple. How you collaborate in software has always changed throughout the decades. And the latest 2-3 decades have been effectively collaboration in software means open source. And Microsoft has been for quite some time one of the largest contributors to open source capabilities. We are active in the CNCF system. We are active in the Linux Foundation. We're active in the Eclipse Foundation. We're active very, very much so because we believe that open source is a key component of how solutions are built today. And equally, I feel like maybe more important, how people collaborate with each other. And that's something that we have seen very, very effectively with the software-defined vehicle working group, where people that have really not worked together in this space, because the automotive space has not traditionally been an open source world. Now I think we have over 90 companies collaborating and thinking through what a software-defined vehicle set of software components and capabilities ought to be, and everybody's collaborating, which is like remarkable to see.
What do you see the role of open source specifically in the software-defined vehicle?
For me, there's a couple of dimensions in this specific context. One, I personally believe if you look at the automotive industry, we have still a very tight coupling between hardware and software. So if you want, for example, an autonomous driving assisted systems, an ADAS system, you generally get the hardware, the sensors, and the software from a single vendor. And I think the desire is there by the OEMs to say, why am I not able to buy the sensors, the hardware from vendor A, and then get the software from vendor B and have them work together without having me having to do a custom integration project, which is the state of the art today. And I think what the Eclipse Foundation is trying to do in the software-defined vehicle working group is, one of them is to effectively enable that, so that there's abstractions that are commonly agreed upon, so that hardware capabilities and software capabilities can dynamically come together. And if we introduce standards, if we introduce standard abstractions, if we introduce APIs and other capabilities that we're using very successfully in other large ecosystems, very complex ones, cloud, PC, and so forth, into the automotive world, I think we can help with that problem. Will it completely go away? No, but at the end of the day, it will help.
What are the skills that a developer needs to be successful in this particular segment of the industry, dealing with open source that's aimed at the software-defined vehicle? And,
yeah,
and how does that differ from what we were looking for a few years ago?
Yeah, so the skills today are still very complex, because you still need to understand vehicles. You need to understand things in motion, which are different than things standing still. You need to understand safety and security concerns, meaning, let's say, to take a dumb thing, you have a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, and you can't turn on the video if the car is driving and it's not in level 3 autonomous driving mode. Simple things like that are something you have to just know, and that's something that's more complicated. So from my perspective, certainly an area to think about. Then specifically right now, if you go into the lower levels of the system, you need to start to understand, okay, how do I build a hardware platform that's generic and long-living enough that I can then put software on top of? And additionally, you also have to now say every car is going to be connected. So you have to think about connectedness, you have to think about cloud in as much as you have to think about vehicle. So there's service-to-service interaction where the car provides a set of services, the cloud provides a set of services. How do you bring all of that together, I think, is another additional set of capabilities that you need to think about.
Let's just talk for a minute about the engineering shortage, because we know this is a pretty big deal. I would think because of the way you just described needing somebody for the software-defined vehicle space, it's even a further specialty that somebody would need to have. How does somebody like Microsoft find the people who have this expertise?
So part of the reason why my friend Christoph Hartung from Bosch and I decided that it really would be a smart idea to build the Eclipse SDV working group is because we know that no single company can solve it on its own. So pooling resources and bringing lots of talent, diverse talent together to solve this hard problem was one of the reasons why open source makes a lot of sense.